Welcome to Meet the Experts, the show that introduces you to today's best and brightest thought leaders sharing information to accelerate your success in business and life. Let's get today's show started.
Welcome to Meet the Experts, the show that introduces you to the thought leaders that can impact your business, your brand, and your bank account. I'm Cory Mosley, your host for today's show. Today's guest is Dawne Brooks Gulla, the Executive Director of BNI Central Virginia, where she helps business professionals grow through structured, relationship-based networking. She is also known, depending on who you ask, as the International Woman of Mystery, bringing a unique and engaging approach to how relationships are built and business gets done. Dawne, welcome to Meet the Experts.
It's good to see you again, Cory.
Yes, it's always exciting to have you here because networking is so important in a generation of AI and all of these things going on here. So I want to just get started. You are the empress of all things when it comes to networking. You're my go-to for advice in this particular area. Tell us, why is networking really one of the most powerful ways still to this day to grow a business, especially in a world that's so digital?
Because there's nothing that will ever replace know, like, and trust. And no matter what kind of technology you have, it is not going to develop the know, like, and trust you need to be able to do business with people and refer people to do business.
Yeah, I find that a lot right now, particularly like in this LinkedIn world, which is supposed to be the networking, digital networking. So much of it is generic. So much of it is canned. Like, I don't even trust messages that I get in terms of introductions or people soliciting me. I don't think it's them. I think it's a bot. How is all of that shifting and changing kind of in your world?
I think it makes it even more important that people do the face-to-face networking and stay away from those other types except as follow-up.
It's almost like real world validation. Like now in the tech world, like if you get a credit card, before they approve it, they'll make you like do this verification thing. You got to take a picture and your license. I feel like what you're describing, right? Still having those touch points, that face-to-face, that relationship kind of piece becomes so important. And I believe one of the words that you use that comes to mind is intentional, right? You talk about
Absolutely
the idea
intentional.
of being intentional with networking. So what are some of the biggest mistakes that people make when they approach networking like a random thing versus a real strategy?
Well, usually they go out looking to find people that want to do business with them, not who they can help. And I'm not going to have a relationship with you if you come on to me selling your product and not getting to know me. I'm just not going to want to. And whether I know that here or here, it doesn't make any difference. Somewhere on me, I know when you're soliciting me.
How do you separate that? I mean, how do you go, because I talk about the, oh, hey, where you're from and how's the weather and all these different things. Like, is that getting to know people?
That's a starting point. So the first thing is you need to plan where you're going to network before you decide to network. You need to fish where the fish you want to catch swim.
Give me an example of that.
If my clients are high-end clients and I'm a realtor and I want to sell luxury homes, I'm going to be networking at country clubs, restaurants where those people go, events those people attend. I'm not going to be going and expecting at the kids' baseball game to find those potential clients. I'm going to strategize that. Even though I'm doing it as a strategy, doesn't mean that I'm doing it without an intention to provide something of value to them first. If I give something of value, then it's going to be much easier for people to want to give in return. And it's almost instinctive. If I give you a gift, something in you says, I've got to find a way to give something back.
That's interesting. And that really more is beyond networking. I mean, that's just an emotional, psychological thing that you're tapping into.
Intrinsic to our nature.
Because I feel like a lot of business owners or people who go to networking, right, they come back, I've just got a lot of cards. And it's like business card bingo. So you can see what cards you have are now in the digital space, how many phones you tapped and bumped, at an event. And I think a lot of people feel like that doesn't necessarily get them results. So what do you tell people that are looking to really build real, meaningful relationships? that, actually lead to opportunities to do business?
I do my homework first. If I can find out about the list of the attendees or the type of attendees that are going to be there, I'm going to do some homework about them or that industry. I'm also not going to be so worried about collecting the number of cards or connections. I'm going to be looking for 3 to 5 people that I can connect with at that event, because realistically, I don't have time to follow up with more than 3 to 5 people. And if I don't follow up, I might as well have not gone.
Mm,
And if you've been somewhere and nobody remembers you were there the next day, you
right.
could have stayed home.
Right. I think, for a lot of people, they put networking in a bucket. They feel like if they're talking to somebody, that's networking. If they're going to an event, that's networking. But, all networking and all kind of modes is not created equally, right? There is traditional networking, and then there's referral-based networking, which is, one of your key areas of expertise. Can you break it down for us? Why does that distinction matter from an approach difference as it relates to growing your business?
I'm going to actually back up a little bit and tell you about an epiphany I had myself about 5 years ago. I was collecting cards, but I was working on following up. But I realized that I had not ever put time in my calendar for the follow-up. I had scheduled the networking events. I had not scheduled the time for the follow-up. And so I was looking at my ROI and I was going, I didn't get to all the people that I met that I wanted to connect with because I didn't make it a priority to connect with them afterwards.
Right.
So that's where I start now. When I decide where I'm going, it's what can I put on my calendar to follow up? And, if I don't have time to follow up, I might as well not go to this event.
Right.
And if I do have time to follow up, how many people do I have based on what's on my schedule for the next week or 2 weeks? Because if it isn't in the next week or 2 weeks with that follow-up, they've forgotten you, moved on, and you're not even in their frame of thought anymore.
Right. And I think that goes back to your point about being intentional and having a plan and strategy, which, ultimately is one of the things that, BNI does and that you do in BNI Central Virginia. Now, you're the executive director of the Central Virginia BNIs. How does that structured relationship-based approach actually help members generate referrals and grow their business?
Well, within their group, it's much easier than it is when you're hitting random events outside in the community, but it also prepares them for those events.
Right.
So the first thing is being able to communicate about their business in such a way that people remember them. Most of the time, they blather on without creating an image of who their ideal client is. And so one of the things we teach them initially is how to be specific about who your ideal client is, and to be memorable. If you tell me a story about how you helped the client, as your referral partner, I'm going to remember this story. I'm not going to remember that 87% of people that don't do such and such have this problem. But if you tell me a story about how you solved a problem for somebody, I'm going to remember that. And so when I go to refer you, I'm going to say, you need to meet my friend Cory. He is an expert in this arena. This is what he recently was able to do for a client. I have now made you a subject matter expert and made you somebody that they want to talk to because I've given them an image of you before they've ever met you.
Yeah, and we want more of that, please. Yes, so and those are the kinds of things that you can find inside an organization like BNI.
Absolutely.
Not just the network, but the skills.
Because it is on a regular basis where you're meeting with your referral partners. I tell my BNI members that you need to think of your BNI chapter as if it's a business that you own in addition to whatever it is that you do. And that these are your partners, and partners hold partners accountable.
Right.
And so you're going to spend time outside of the meeting doing what we refer to as one-to-ones, where you do a deep dive with that person about their business and their ideal client. You're going to have an avatar in your head, what that client looks like. You're going to know, more importantly, what to say that's going to elicit that potential client to want to work with the person.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Now, that all sounds great. However, a lot of people feel uncomfortable, even intimidated when it comes to networking, right? It's not just supernatural. I would say it was natural for you. Now, you've obviously developed tremendous skills and have spoken all over the country, but I believe there was a base there to work with. And a lot of people are very fearful of talking to other people, as crazy as it sounds for people who communicate all day. It's so true. Let's talk advice. What advice would you give someone who says, I'm not really the networking type, Dawne, I'm a really good, driver instructor. I'm a really good baker. I'm a really good coach. I'm just not really into the networking
And
thing.
you get to starve without constant clients coming in. What BNI gives you, number one, is that you have a team of marketing people that are out there promoting you. But they can't promote you unless they know what you do and how to do that. But you need to be networking outside of your BNI group, because even
How do you convince somebody right now? Somebody's just going to look at this and they're going to I've been wanting to go, but I'm just afraid. What's a good icebreaker? How can they just go do it?
Well, the first thing is to learn how to ask open-ended questions. If I meet you and I say, hi, my name's Dawne,
right?
And you say, your name's Cory, and you're the introvert, that ends the conversation.
Right.
But if you say to me, is this the first time you've attended this event? That only gives you a yes or no answer.
Right.
So as an introvert, now you don't know where to go next. But if you give me a question that leads
Like
me
a bad date
to talk to you more,
right?
And by saying, this is my first time here, who would you recommend that is the best person to talk to if I wanted to learn more about the Chesterfield Chamber?
Right.
Now I'm going to talk to you. Now you're going to have some more information to build conversation, and you only need to ask an open-ended question for me to talk. I would think you're an amazing conversationalist,
right?
Even though I've been doing all the talking,
right?
And you're gathering information that's helping you build the foundation of a potential relationship.
Yeah, no, I like that. And it's really just it is one of those, feel the fear and do it anyway moments too. But I think that's a good starting point. So someone can have that focus, just saying, hey, I'm not going to just go, hey, where you're from or what you do. But if I can just focus on open-ended questions, that's a great starting point for somebody to get out of the gate, because that exactly happens. They ask a closed-ended question, and then it's kind of like, pause, what's next? Who's going to go next in the conversation? All right, so we're about at time, but if there's one thing that you want people to walk away, I think, understanding about networking and relationship building, what would that be?
If you treat it as if it's something normal to do, like making new friends, as opposed to something that you're going to do because you have to do it to grow your business, that makes it easier. But to talk to people that you know that are doing it already and doing it well and asking for advice, going to events with them, not hanging out with them, but having them introduce you to people so you make that transition easier. And then also, the funds are in the follow-up. You will not make any money from networking if you don't do the follow-up. And for goodness sakes, if you go with a group of people, do not sit with them. I was at a chamber event a couple weeks ago, and I saw 6 people that I knew that knew each other already sitting at the same table. But they came there to make new contacts. And they didn't make any
under the
contacts.
umbrella of comfort.
Right. And that was not networking. That was socializing. And there's nothing wrong with socializing.
Right.
But you need to know what your purpose is. And if your purpose is to make new friends, you need to sit with new people and talk to them.
It goes back to your point about being intentional. Because what I heard you say is, again, like dating, right? Sometimes you go out, you bring your wingman, you bring your wingwoman, and you work together. So
and that's exactly the way you should do networking if you go with somebody else.
Yeah. I think that's perfect. I'm glad you brought that in at the end, because I know there's a bunch of people who will get other people they know together to go to something and then spend all their time together. So that was a great point that you made.
If I go in and find a table,
Yeah.
I put my stuff down and then I go away.
Yeah.
I want to see who's going to sit there. I want to meet new strangers.
Yeah. Well, that's why you are who you are. So it's always fun having you, always such good information. And thank you, for people in the business community who watch this, who maybe forgot the importance. They're caught up in the app. They're caught up in social media. They're caught up in thinking they've got to get their, they've got to get their TikTok going, and they're missing opportunities that are right in front of them. So thank you for everything that you're doing. Thank you for what you're doing with BNI as well.
I'm rarely going to buy anything locally from TikTok.
Yeah, there you go. So we'll leave it right there. Dawne Brooks Gulla, thank you. Always a pleasure having you.
And thank you for having me, Cory.
Absolutely. If you're serious about growing your business through relationships and referrals, visit bniva.com to learn more about BNI Central Virginia. This has been another episode of Meet the Experts, the show that introduces you to the thought leaders that can impact your business, your brand, and your bank account. I'm Cory Mosley, and I will see you next time.
Thanks for watching Meet the Experts, an exclusive interview series produced by Thought Leadership Studios.